Good afternoon, everybody. This is Keen on Football, your host, Keen. This is my Week 6 college football preview / Week 5 review. Today I am wearing this fantastic East Carolina Pirates windbreaker that I found thrifting. So that's our fit for today. And we're going to start this off how we're usually going to start this off. I'm going to give my top 25 teams heading into Week 6. So at number 1, we got Ohio State. Number 2, Oregon. Number 3, Ole Miss. Number 4, Texas A&M. Number 5, Miami. Number 6, Oklahoma. Number 7, Indiana. Number 8, Alabama. Number 9, Missouri. Number 10, Vanderbilt. Number 11, Tennessee. Number 12, Georgia. Number 13, Michigan. Number 14, USC. Number 15, Iowa State. Number 16, Texas Tech. Number 17, Louisville. Number 18, BYU. Number 19, Georgia Tech. Number 20, LSU. Number 21, Penn State. Really low for Penn State here. Number 22, Illinois. Number 23, Memphis. 24, Florida State. And rounding out the rear, we got number 25, Arizona State. You may be sitting there wondering, why is Penn State so low? Why are they, 21st out of 25 teams? How could you put 20 teams above Penn State? And I'll explain that, why, and a lot more on today's video. But before we can talk about teams, and before we can look forward to Week 6, we have to look back on Week 5, right? But before we do that, a lot of befores we do that, I'm going to give my top 10 group of 5 teams. This is what I'm going to call my group of 5 contender series. Here's the 10 best group of 5 teams, I think. The short list for making that the at-large playoff spot. If you're looking for teams to maybe, cue into on Saturday, and I'll give you a watch schedule for Saturday. But if you're looking for teams to kind of look out for on your own, here they are. The top 10 group of 5 schools. Number 1, Memphis, who are in the top 25, duh. Number 2, North Texas. Number 3, Tulane. Number 4, UNLV. Number 5, Navy. Number 6, South Florida. Number 7, Boise State. Number 8, Texas State. Number 9, Fresno State. And number 10, Old Dominion. Those are my top 10 group of 5 schools. Now I'm going to give my awards for the week. I'm going to give you my best player of the week, my best game of the week, my best upset of the week, and I already said best team, my worst team of the week. Order doesn't matter. But my player of the week is going to be Trinidad Chambliss. What a awesome name, by the way. Trinidad Chambliss. Fantastic name. Against the LSU Tigers, who have a very formidable defense. They're 15th in the country and EPA allowed per game. This is after this game, of course. I'm not sure what they were before, but after the Ole Miss game, they are 15th, still 15th in the nation in EPA allowed per play. This is a good defense. This is a championship defense. Trinidad Chambliss walked into Ole Miss, and he put up, I have it here, 39 attempts, 23 completions for 314 yards through the air. That's a 59% completion percentage. You kind of want to see more out of the completion percentage. 314 yards is fantastic. He had a touchdown. He had an interception. The interception was wish-wash. And he had an 86.9 QBR in ESPN. Doesn't sound like such a, doesn't blow your socks off, but if you gotta remember, he's playing against this LSU defense that is very, very good. They're very good at defending the pass, and they're just very good at limiting teams' effectiveness overall. So far this season, since Ole Miss has placed Trinidad Chambliss in the starting role, Trinidad Chambliss is 15th. No, sorry, not 15th. He is 15th. So both LSU's defense is 15th, and Trinidad Chambliss is 15th. 15th in the country in EPA per dropback. He's the 15th best quarterback in the nation. The only other names ahead of him are guys like Josh Hoover, Fernando Mendoza, Joey Aguilar, Dante Moore, Castellanos, Pavia, Jalen Daniels, and of course Jaden Malava, who I'll get to it later. That's my guy for the Heisman. I think it's between Jaden Malava and Dante Moore right now. They might not give it to Jaden Malava. The Heisman committee doesn't like giving the Heisman to players who lose 2 or more games, or at least we thought so. Last year, Travis Hunter got the Heisman, but that was a special case. I think right now though it's Dante Moore and Jaden Malava. But I regress My player for the week, Trinidad Chambliss. For my upset of the week, I am going to have to give it to Florida State, who, coming into the season, everybody was, coming into last season, everybody was really, really high on Florida State. They had this undefeated season. They won the ACC. Of course, we all know they got snubbed out of the playoffs, and they made such a big fuss. And then they played Georgia, and we all watched that game. We saw how bad that ended for them. So going into the next season, people weren't as high on Florida State, but they thought it'd be a decent team. They were top 25 in the preseason. They lose to Georgia Tech in Ireland, and from that point on, it all just comes crumbling down. They finished 2-10. They don't even make a bowl game. It is the worst flip-flop in college football history, I believe. The other way around. The other way around, I think, would be Tulane a couple years ago. They finished 2-10, and then they went 12-1, I think. Don't quote me on that. I don't have it in front of me. But going into this season, people were kind of suspect on Florida State. I mean, look at what happened last year, 2-10. Yeah, sure, they have some nice transfers. Thomas Castellanos was a dog at Boston College, but how good is he going to be at Florida State? And how good is the coaching? And we know they jettisoned a lot of the coaching last year, and they brought in a whole bunch of new guys. I'm pretty sure it was a new OC, new DC, completely new coaching staff. How good are they going to be? They come out week 1, they beat Alabama, and everybody loses it. Everybody loses it. I mean, I'm pretty sure they were in the top 25 the next week, right? Everybody's high on Florida State. I was high on Florida State. I thought they were back. I thought Thomas Castellanos was a dog. I had him as a dark horse Heisman candidate at around week 2 or 3, and they come into Virginia. And they played this, I believe it was a Friday night game against Virginia. And they lost. Very close. They lost. They were very close. They went to double overtime. But it just, an upset is an upset. Virginia wins 46-38. I will talk about that game a lot in depth later, but that's my upset of the week. It is also, coincidentally, my game of the week. This award will go to the most exciting game. Typically Power 5, but if there is, I do want to give attention to the group of 5 schools out here. But my most exciting game, it has to, again, go to this Florida State-Virginia game. It was absolute cinema from start to finish. Just the perfect game. It's an ESPN classic, if you will. An ESPN, I know they don't have those anymore, but it's an ESPN classic. Special shout-out, though, San Diego State and Northern Illinois played this game on Saturday, where the final score was 6-3, and I'm pretty sure there was like 20 or something punts in this game. I will talk about that one later, but that was... If you like defense, you would have loved that game. That was a defensive masterclass, and yeah, that's kind of my runner-up for game of the week. If you needed to go and watch some highlights on YouTube later, go watch the highlights from that game. My team of the week has to go to Ohio State. They went into Husky Stadium to play the Washington Huskies. Husky Stadium, beautiful venue, by the way, one of the most underrated venues in college football. I would put it on my top 5 to 10 most difficult stadiums to play in. I'm pretty sure it is the loudest stadium in college football. I think they've measured that in terms of decibels, and it's got a fantastic view. That aside, they go into this Lions Den, Husky Stadium. The Washington Huskies are one of the top offenses in the country, and this Ohio State defense walked in and they made it look like a group of 5 school. It didn't look, like a Big Ten contender, which is what the Washington Huskies are. They are a top 3 to 5, best team in the Big Ten right now, if I had to guess. This is a Big Ten contender, certainly. They have an outside chance of winning the Big Ten, and it's one of the best offenses in the country, and they made them look like a group of 5 school in their own backyard. I get the Ohio State offense didn't click too much, but the defense it made it look embarrassing. They held Washington to 2 field goals all game. That was it. That's all she wrote. I'll talk about that more in depth later, as I will most of these things. My worst team of the week, it's going to go to Syracuse. Right? Now, I love Fran Brown as a coach. I think he's a nut job. I'd put him on, I'd dub him the Joe Mazzulla of college football. He's just insane. You saw a couple weeks ago, he made them run sprints after a game they won in overtime. And I know he's on record of having that quote of saying when they lose games, he doesn't shower. Well, Fran Brown probably isn't showering this week as they lost to Duke. They didn't just lose to Duke. They got embarrassed by Duke. Duke, by the way, has not played anybody. They played Elon, which, it's an FCS school. It's a give me, should be at least for most teams. And then they lost to, I believe they lost to Tulane, and then they lost to, I don't have it in front of me. They lost to UConn. No, that's Syracuse. Pardon me. They beat Elon 45-17, and then they lost to Illinois 45-19, but Illinois, it is a top 25 team, and nobody's expecting much out of Duke. And then they lost to Tulane, this group of 5 school. Again, one of the better group of 5 teams in the country, but if you're Duke, you should still be expecting to win this game. They lost 34-27. And then they played NC State. NC State's not that good. I think they're in the bottom half of the ACC, personally. The ACC is just a bad conference anyways. So to be in the bottom half of the ACC, you're really not a good Power 5 team. Or Power 4, I guess. I'm not used to saying Power 4. And then they face Syracuse. Now, Syracuse has beaten teams. They beat UConn, which I think says something. They beat Colgate 66-24. And then they beat Clemson. Now, that's the big ticket on Syracuse's, schedule. And I get Clemson is horrible this year. Dabo Swinney looks like his team is just all over the place. I'm pretty sure they're 1-3. They also played Tennessee week 1, and they lost 45-26. And it's Tennessee. It's an SEC school. UConn, by the way, I believe was that game. Fran Brown made them run, sprints in. But they played Duke, right? And they're supposed to, they're favored in this game, I think, by 2 scores or something, and they lose 38-3. They put up a field goal all game. This is the same team that put up 27 on UConn, 34 on Duke, which is a good defense. They put up 66 on FCS Colgate, and they put up 3 on Duke. They can't even beat their, the bottom half of their own conference, and that's embarrassing. If I'm Fran Brown, and I went out there and I lost 38. They let up 38 points. Duke scored more points. Duke scored more points on Syracuse defense than Clemson did. And that's saying something, right? The defense looked atrocious. The offense could not click. It was just a disaster class out of, a team that was 3-1 has some people may have them in their top 25. Probably not after that game. They just looked atrocious. Those are my weekly awards. And we're going to start our week 5 review with this Florida State-Virginia game, which I think is I had a game of the week, upset of the week. I think it was the storyline of the week, right? So Virginia, of course, as I've already mentioned, they upset Florida State 46-38 in double overtime and had this insane, field rush. Well, I'll get to that. But, the Cavs and the Noles, these two teams were tied at halftime. I'm pretty sure 21-21 or 28-28. But after the break, both these teams, they were both of these teams, they were landing, blows. It looked like Muhammad Ali and Frazier out there. They were just blow after blow after blow after blow, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Virginia leaned into this running game that they have utilized most of the season. They had 211 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. The Cavs took a 35-28 lead early in the 4th, but Thomas Castellanos, the dog that he is, he leads the Seminoles late in the 4th quarter on a game-winning drive. They tie the game at 35 apiece or go into overtime. Overtime, just like, the second half, it's a dogfight. They matched field goals in the first overtime, so we entered double overtime. That's how overtime works. So we're not at a 38-38. Morris, Syracuse, Morris takes it in for the tutty, and Trell Harris is on point. They go for 2. They extend the lead to 8. Now it's 46-38. Florida State has one last chance, to tie this game, and they've got to go for 2 if they score. They got to force triple overtime. There's no way to just win in double overtime. Had Syracuse just kicked a point after, made it a 7-point lead, I would kind of be in favor of on the road going for 2, but that's just me personally in overtime. Their backs are against the wall. The Noles, after, a few stalled plays, they find themselves at a 4th and 11. And the Cavaliers' defense, they extinguish all hope for the Florida State Seminoles. Thomas Castellanos tries to, bomb it into the end zone. He's looking to, get this out of the way now. They're not looking for the first down. They're looking for the touchdown. Jashawn Prevar, I think that's how you say his name, who had an interception earlier in the game, gets his second of the game. He's my defensive player of the week. Jashawn Prevar. He picked him off earlier. He picks him off again. He intercepts the ball in the end zone. And that's it. The UVA, the students, they had already, I believe, since the start of overtime, had kind of jumped out of the seating and had lined the lower bowl of the stadium. I'm not sure how Virginia Stadium works, but they were already on the field at the start of overtime. As soon as Jashawn Prevar comes down with this ball, they just, it's nuts. It is the fastest field storm I have ever seen in my life. It's not even close. The Florida State receiver, who I can't think of his name right now, but he was on the ground, trying to dive for the ball that got picked off. I nearly thought he got trampled to death. It was scary, scary, scary. I am a fan of field rushes. I love field rushes, but we've got to find a way to put the players first. So many times in the past, I can point to so many issues, or fans have stormed the field, and this is a great thing. Fines aside, I don't think we should fine these schools. We've been fining these schools for like 2 or 3 years now, and it doesn't seem to stop. So what's the point in fining them? They're going to take out the field, the goalposts regardless, the fine or no fine, but I think we need to find a way to protect these players. So many times we've had incidents where these fans rush the field and they mess with the players, and the players retaliate because they're human beings, they're not perfect, and it's just an ugly, ugly mess. We saw this actually. I can't for the life of me remember who was playing, but in college basketball this year there was a court rush, not a field rush, a court rush, and I'm pretty sure one of Duke's players almost got injured, if not got injured as a result of this court rush. And, a lot of people talked about that. That's going to happen in football eventually. This kid could have gotten trampled by this, the Virginia fans, and we need to look out for that. That's my 2 cents on the matter. I love field rushes. I think you should field rush every time you win a big game. We've got to worry about the players. It's all about player safety, and it's all about preventing incidents between the players and the fans. To recap this Virginia-Florida State game, Castellanos, who I've been saying in all video, he's a dog, and I still think he's a dog. This game was close. Florida State very much could have won this game. This loss, I don't think, subtracts from Castellanos' performance. He put on a dual-threat, masterclass. He was out there he looked like Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson. He had 332 all-purpose yards, 78 of which came on the ground. However, Florida State did lose this game. And the key for them losing the game, the key for Virginia to win this game, was Florida State having way too many turnovers. They had 3 turnovers. They had 2 interceptions, one to end the game. It was a walk-off interception, and then they had an interception earlier, both of which, by Jashawn Prevar. And then they also had a fumble. That's 3 drives you could have scored on. If Virginia Tech scores on these 3 drives, they're ahead by 4 scores going into the 4th, and not just 1, or tied in the whatever. Virginia, I have already mentioned, their ground game looked fantastic. Again, 211 yards on 48 rushes, 4 touchdowns off the carry. Virginia's rushing game looked elite. And Florida State could not stop them. Virginia ran through the Seminoles' ass like a tin can, and they could not stop them, to borrow a quote from Nick Saban.
And they run through our ass like through a tin horn, man, and we could not stop them. Could not stop them. Could not stop them.
That's my game of the week, my upset of the week, and that's my recap. Florida State, Virginia. Next, I want to talk about this Ohio State-Washington game, and I will come forward, and I will admit I am an Ohio State homer. You're never going to catch me saying a good word about the team up north. I'm hardly going to say their name at all. And anytime I can get to talk about Ohio State, I will talk about Ohio State. I'm going to try to be unbiased, but you got to know I grew up an Ohio State fanatic. So, it's with great pleasure that I talk about this next section. Ohio State walking into Husky Stadium, the loudest stadium in college football. It didn't look like it was so... I need to check the attendance numbers, but it didn't look like a whole lot of people. I don't think it was a sellout. which is insane. You have one of the most dedicated fan bases in college football. You have the best stadium in college football. You're a Big Ten contender, and you're welcoming in the big bad bully of the Big Ten, and you have a chance to knock them off, and you don't sell out the stadium. And that's insane to me. You need to sell out this game. Washington lost when they didn't sell out this game, but even then, they were very loud. You could watch it on the TV. You could hear how loud it was. It's the loudest stadium in college football, and I don't think it's particularly close. And Ohio State took care of business on offense. They did what they had to do. They didn't look too rattled by this Washington crowd, the 12th man. And they just, they weren't quite clicking on offense. They weren't lighting up the scoreboard, but they did what they had to do in a very, in a pit of vipers, a pit of tigers, a pit of huskies, if you will. The defense, on the other hand, this Ohio State defense, it's the best defense in the country, and I don't think it's particularly close. My storyline is in particular. It's not going to be about Julian Sayin or Jeremiah Smith and the offense. It's not going to be about the Huskies or their fans. My storyline of the week: this Ohio State defense. It's really scary. This Ohio State defense is terrifying. Actually, hold on. For this section, I'm going to put on. When I talk about Ohio State, I'm gonna do my best, and I'm gonna be the homer that I am. I'm gonna wear my Jeremiah Smith blackout playoff national championship jersey with the playoff stripes. I got this from DH Gate for like $30 in total. I'm gonna wear my Ohio State jersey for this section. Ohio State's defense was terrifying. The offense struggled a little early, but they got it together. The defense, it clicked instantly. And this is one of the best offenses in the country. One of the best offenses in the country. I'm pretty sure they are also, where is my mouse? I'm pretty sure they are also like top 15 in offensive EPA. EPA per play. They're number 7 in the country in EPA per play on offense. Again, this is after the Ohio State game. I don't know what they looked like before. They may have been top 5 in the country or like top 3, but they're still top 7 in the country in EPA per play. They, 0.22, which is nothing to scoff at. By the way, USC's offense just looks incredible, doesn't it? Number 1 in the country at 0.40 EPA per play. Number 2 in the country, Vanderbilt only has 32. So that jump is kind of insane. But this isn't a video about USC's offense or Washington's offense for that matter. But I just need you to understand that this is not a cupcake opponent that the Buckeyes are, playing. This is one of the best defenses in the country, and they made them look like a group of 5 school. They made them look ridiculous. They made them look horrible, right? They held them to 2 field goals all game. The MVP, I think, of this defense is that box, that front 7 they've got. Of course, I can talk about Caleb Downs and David Igbinosun all day, but this front 7 they looked ridiculous. Ridiculous. They sacked the Huskies 6 times. 6 times. 6 sacks in a game. You gotta wonder, is it our offensive line or is it Ohio State's box? And watching the game, I thought the Huskies' offensive line, they didn't play a fantastic game. Obviously, they let up 6 sacks. At least half of those have got to be your fault. But they put pretty good, protection on the quarterback most of the game. It's just Ohio State's front 7 is otherworldly. 6 sacks, and they only held him to 61 rushing yards. Now, this is a team, Jed Fish, this is a Jed Fish coach team. They like to run the ball, as opposed to, the Washington of, Kalen DeBoer, who passed the ball. This is a team that runs the ball, right? That loves to run the ball. And they have one of the better running backs in college football. They have DeMond Williams Jr., who has so far 17.57 EPA and a half an EPA per rush this season. They have Jonah Coleman, 24.56 EPA. He's got 0.38 EPA per rush. They've got a talented backfield. They've got, by EPA, the 21st best running back and the 11th best running back in college football. And they've got a capable offensive line. They like to run the ball. Ohio State's defense only let them have 61 rushing yards the entire game. Not in the first quarter, not in the first half, not in the second half. The entire game they were held to 61 rushing yards. And the Huskies could only, like I said, they've only managed a pair of field goals all day. They converted on 9.1% of their third downs. They found themselves at, they didn't have a whole lot of third and shorts. The Ohio State offense minimalized their damage on first and second down so that when they reached third down, obviously it was a passing down, and Washington couldn't use the strength of their team, which is this dominating rushing attack. Had they found themselves at some third and threes, third and twos, fourth and ones, fourth and inches, they could have used this dominating rushing attack in this two-headed monster they have. But Ohio State was able to stop them on first down and second down to help make third down a passing down. Right? That's the key here. They made third down a passing down. Washington only converted on 9.1 of their third downs, and they did have 3 fourth down attempts. They only converted one of them. So they were 1 for 3 on third down. The only blemish on the Bucks defense all day, if you could even call it one, is that they didn't force any turnovers. And in college football, not so much the NFL. It's very important in the NFL, but in college football, you have to convert turnovers. You have to have a positive turnover margin in the NFL too. But it's so important in college that you take away these teams' offensive possessions and you don't lose yours. Because a turnover is a lost touchdown. Always remember that. A turnover, an interception, a fumble, a turnover on downs, that's a lost touchdown. Think you could have had 7 or 8 points or even 3 points on this drive. Instead, you don't get nothing, and the defense gets the ball on in a good position. So, not forcing any turnovers. I want to see Ohio State's defense force these turnovers. They didn't, and that's the only blemish I can, find. They were perfect otherwise. So far, through 4 games, and I get they played Texas week 1, and Texas was I think they were a top 3 team in the country. I'm pretty sure they were number one in the country in the preseason poll. The AP poll doesn't matter, let alone the preseason AP poll, but they were number 1. And they held them to 7 points, and then they played a few cupcake opponents. I have the schedule up here. They played FCS Grambling State. They scored, they shut them out 70-0, but that's an FCS school. And then they played Ohio, the Bobcats, and another cupcake school from the MAC, and they held them to 9 points. I think that was just 3 field goals. I might be wrong there. They held them to 3 field goals. So this Ohio State defense has played 4 games, 4 games, 2 of which are against very competent opponents. 2 of which are cupcake schools. But against these 4 teams, Ohio State's defense has only allowed one lone touchdown. And they have a shutout against an FCS team, but they have a shutout. The Bucks are surrendering 5.5 points per game, number 1 in the country by a wide margin. They are allowing 3.99 or 3.39? They're allowing about 4 yards per play. Again, if it's not number 1, it's top 5 in the country. They have 13 sacks, and they are only allowing their opponents to convert on 22% of their third downs. And they only score on 25% of their red zone trips. Number 2 is 50. Most teams, give or take, allow 50% of their opponent's red zone drives to score some kind of points, at least a field goal. Ohio State is only allowing points on 25% of the time when the offense gets into the red zone. That's ludicrous. I mean, they had this whole slogan last year. They had these goal line stands. It was, bend but don't break. This year, they've taken that to a whole new level. They're not even hardly bending, but even when teams do get into the red zone, it's impossible to find points. Lost my train of thought. The Bucks, of course, they have a comfortable lead on scoring defense against Texas. Again, Texas is one of these teams they played, but Texas themselves are only allowing 7.8 points per game. Remember, Ohio State's allowing 5.5. That's number 1, number 2. That's a wide margin. They're 4th in the country in third down percentage, and they're 1st by a mile in red zone percentage. They're 4th in the country in EPA allowed per play. I mean, this defense is incredible. They have the best player in college football in Caleb Downs. They have this dominant defensive line, this, veteran linebacker core. They have a veteran secondary, David Igbinosun, Arvell Reese, Caden Curry, Houston. I could list the Sonny Styles. I could list, they have NFL, they have Sunday talent, Sunday players in every position, and they have depth to boot, and they have one of the best DCs in football, Matt Patricia. We all remember how insane this Ohio State defense was the last couple of years under Jim Knowles. I forgot about Jim Knowles. And Jim Knowles used a lot of these insane concepts, and he blitzed a lot last year. He played a lot of man. We all remember how good the Ohio State defense was last year. And Jim Knowles leaves for Penn State, and everybody's wondering, what is this Ohio State defense going to do now? They lost quite a lot of their starters. They got Caleb Downs in return, David Igbenos in the return, Sonny Styles returned. But other than that, they lost Tui Lolau. They lost Jack Sawyer. That's their two edge rushers gone. They lost a lot of I'm pretty sure all four starters on the defensive line gone. They lost most of their, linebackers. Their secondary held up quite well, but they lost a lot of talent. They got a new DC, Matt Patricia. I have supreme utmost confidence in Matt Patricia. He's of the Bill Belichick school of thought, one of the best defensive coaches of all time, certainly. He learned from the best. Matt Patricia has this defense locked in, squared away, one of the best defenses of the last 5 years, certainly the best in the nation this year. We're going to transition from talking about one of the best units in the country, one of the best sides of the ball in the country, to a bit of a problem, a one-man problem, if you will. Penn State has a problem. Lights should be flashing if you're a Penn State fan. You remember I had them 21 on my top 5. Lights should be flashing. Penn State so far this season, they've played Nevada, not a good team, cupcake opponent. They won 46-11. They played FIU, even more of a cupcake team. They won 34-0. And then they played Villanova, the basketball school, an FCS school, and they won 52-6. They had not played anybody all season. You could not look me in the eye and say a single one of Penn State's out-of-conference games was a good matchup. I get Texas is not that good this year, but at least Ohio State tried to schedule a good team. Penn State didn't even try to schedule a good team. Nevada, FIU, Villanova, one of the worst opening slates I've seen in a long time. The first real game they play, they have it at home. Beaver Stadium, fantastic venue, one of the best in the nation. It's a whiteout game. They had it against Oregon, and they lost in double overtime, 24-21. I preface this because I need you to understand. Penn State has a problem. That problem has a name. Their problem is Drew Aller. They have a Drew Aller problem. They have a quarterback problem. Drew Aller has been the quarterback at Penn State for, I think, 3 seasons now. He played a little bit, but he's been the guy ever since Sean Clifford left. And we all remember Sean Clifford. Yeah. But Penn State has never really been able to produce good quarterbacks. Sean Clifford, I think, was taken in the draft, but he was, nothing ever became of him. And after that, they had Drew Aller. And Drew Aller, I think, was a first, a lot of people were talking about him in the first round of the NFL draft last year, but he chose to stay around for his senior season at Penn State. And if I'm a Penn State fan, right now, I'm not too happy about that. I kind of wish he would have gotten drafted. I wish there was another, a next man up mentality. You could have gone in and you could have got Thomas Castellanos. You already have this amazing rushing attack led by Keyshawn Allen. You could have supplemented that with a dual threat quarterback. You could have supplemented it with any quarterback, a quarterback who could play the game of football. And I don't even think Drew Aller is that. Last year he was a first round prospect, and I was never hot on him. I've never been hot on Drew Aller. But, he was a first-round prospect, like a day 1 prospect, maybe a day 2 prospect last year. Certainly top 3 rounds. I don't know if I don't know if he has a future in the NFL so far through 4 games this season. Through 4 games this season, Drew Aller looks lost. He looks lost. He has a 62.8 completion percentage, which is fine. It's fine. It's more than Trinidad Chambliss had against LSU, and I talked about how good he was doing that game. 62.8% completion percentage. He's got 190 passing yards per game, which is not a lot. Not a lot. I mean, once you got like 250, then I'm pretty, 250 passing yards a game, that's fine. Remember, Trinidad Chambliss had 314 against LSU's defense. Who has Drew Aller played? He hasn't played a team on the caliber. He hasn't played a defense of LSU's caliber. Oregon, I get, is good defense, but FIU's not a good defense. Villanova's not a good defense. These aren't good defenses they're playing, and he's only averaging about 191 passing yards a game. And you may go, okay, well, Keen. It is a rush first team. You're correct. It is a rush first team, but you can't run the ball on 80, 90, 70% of your possessions of the game and expect to win the game at this level. Maybe in the group of five, not in the power four. You can't expect to win the game, rushing 70, 80% of the time. When they're passing the ball, Penn State looks dead in the water, right? Drew Aller has a negative EPA, negative 0.02. He got a negative EPA. And this is the guy who's supposed to lead this team to a championship. He's got a 48.4 QBR on ESPN, and I don't really like using QBR because it's mystical and nobody knows the formula, but even his rating is not good at all. His QBR is 87th in the country. He does not look like a first-round quarterback. He doesn't look like a day 2 quarterback. He doesn't look like a Sunday player at all. He doesn't look like somebody who's supposed to lead this team to a national championship. If his numbers weren't worrying enough, look at who they've played. Look at who this Ohio State or this Penn State team has played. Nobody. They've played nobody. They played Oregon last week, and that's it. The first 3 games Penn State played were completely meaningless, and they meant nothing. They've meant nothing. I could go out there, probably. I could go out there and probably put up 230 passing yards a game. Maybe like an 80 QBR. Of course, I'm joking. I'm not a Division I player. I've never even played football. But the point being, you shouldn't look like this. You should not be playing at the very least, Drew Aller should look average. I get he's not going to knock your socks off. I don't think he's ever been that kind of player. But he looks like DJ Ugalele. He looks like DJ Ugalele. I'm not saying that correctly. Whatever. He looks like ridiculous. He looked ridiculous out there. Ridiculous. And I think Ohio. I don't know what other quarterbacks Penn State has on the roster. I can check right now. But I don't know if they need to pull an Ole Miss in 3 weeks into the season or 4 weeks into the season going, or 4 games into the season going. I don't think this is working out. I get Drew Aller. He's the veteran. He has tenure. He has expectation. He has NIL money. He's got every reason to start, but he's not producing. And if I'm James Franklin, that NIL, that seniority, that expectation, that doesn't mean a whole lot if you can't win games. I get they're 3-1. You can scratch the first 3 games off. They're starting the game, starting the season 0-1 at home, whiteout when their quarterback played atrocious. He's, I think the worst quarterback in Power 5. Certainly the worst quarterback in Power 5 on a team that should be contending. They've got Ethan Grunkemeyer and Jackson Smolik. I can't tell you who these guys are. I cannot tell you who these guys are. But I can tell you that Ethan Grunkemeyer, he does have 105 yards. He does have a 73% completion percentage. He has a touchdown, no interceptions. He's only attempted 11 passes all year, so that's not really saying a lot. But this Penn State team is atrocious. And I don't think they have. I don't know if they have. I mean, maybe that's the reason Drew Aller is still playing. They don't. I don't think they have anybody else on the team who can play. Quarterback. I'm checking right now. They got Drew Aller and Jackson Smolik, who's he's a redshirt sophomore. They got Beckham. They got Beckham Kritza. He's a true freshman. He's a 3-star. Ethan Grunkemeyer, he's a redshirt freshman. Jackson Smolik, he was a 3-star coming out of high school. Beckham Kritza, he was a 3-star coming out. So, all right, Grunkemeyer was a 4-star. I'll give him that. But I don't know if they have anybody who can play quarterback on this team. They got 4 quarterbacks, so I don't think a single one of them can play quarterback. And at least not the level that they're supposed to. Not the level you want when you're contending for a national championship. That's my takeaway. I think, even Drew Aller he's capping this Penn State team to finishing third or fourth in the Big Ten. They've already lost to Oregon, and that's certainly one of the better teams in the Big Ten. Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. I think those are the three teams that I could confidently say might win the Big Ten. Not Penn State. They've already lost to Oregon. If Oregon finishes 11, let's play a little bit, let's look into our crystal ball. If Ohio State finishes 12-0, like I think they will, and Oregon finishes 11-1, and Penn State, somehow finishes 11. That's not possible. They have to play Ohio State. But let's just pretend. That Oregon is 11-1 and Penn State is 11-1. Oh, who's going to go to the championship? It's not going to be Penn State because Oregon's won the head-to-head matchup, and that matters in this sport. Winning head-to-head matchups matters in this sport, and they've already lost the head-to-head matchup that they should have won. And the season's lost. I mean, they could still make the playoffs, maybe it's an extended, but they're not going to make the Big Ten championship. They're certainly not going to win it. And I don't think even if they do make the playoffs, they're not going to go very far at all. I got them at number 21. I don't think it's a good team at all. They've been top 5 for most of the season because they were top 5 in the preseason because they had a lot of hype. But hype does not equal results. Let Texas show you. Hype does not equal results. Let Notre Dame show you. Let Clemson show you. Hype does not equal results. You can't rate teams based on hype. You got to look at, how talented is the roster? Who have they played? How well have they played? And I don't think Penn State, they have a talented roster. They don't have a talented quarterback. They haven't played anybody. And even the people they have played, it's looked like a little wish-washy. And they've lost the only game that matters. I mean, I could talk about Penn State not looking good for forever. For forever. But I have to cut it short. I have to move on to the next segment. The top, I just want to give my personal coaching hot seat. And for now, I'm just gonna give you 6 names. 6 names. But next week, we're going to check in on these 6 names. And we're going to check in every other week to kind of, stir up, see how they're doing, give them a report card. But right now, I think the 6 Power 5 coach or Power 4 coaches on the hot seat, if I had to rank them, it's Billy Napier at 1. Obviously, if we were making this video 2 weeks ago, it would have been Mike Gundy number 1. But obviously, we know Mike Gundy got fired. So number 1 is Billy Napier. I think if Billy Napier goes below 500, there's not a chance in my mind he returns for next season. Not a chance in my mind. I think even if Billy Napier goes 7-5, they've got to cut him. They got to let it go. Look at the games he would have lost. But you've got to look at this, Florida schedule. It's a brutal schedule. And they've already played the easier part of it. They beat Long Island. They beat the Long Island Sharks. There are no Sharks in Long Island, New York. They beat the Long Island Sharks. They lose to the South Florida Bulls in Gainesville. Lost to the Tigers. Lost to the Hurricanes. Now they've got to go play Texas. They got to play Texas A&M on the road. They got Mississippi State, who loves upsetting teams. They got to play Georgia. Obviously the Georgia-Florida game, the neutral site game in Jacksonville. They got to go to Kentucky. They got to go play Ole Miss. They got Tennessee at home, Florida State at home. The only team I think they have a chance. There's only 2 teams I think they have a decent chance of beating, and it's Mississippi State and Kentucky. And I might not even give them those. I might not even give them those games. They're losing to Texas. They're losing to Texas A&M. They're losing to Georgia. They've already lost to Ole Miss. Let's be honest. They're losing to Tennessee. They're not beating Florida State. This is a 3-9 Florida team. This team was ranked in the top 25 of the preseason. This team's atrocious. This is the DJ Lagway experience. This is the Billy Napier experience. I get that he built the program at, Louisiana, but he's been here, 4 or 5 years, and what has he done? Nothing. He's done nothing, and now he's 1-3 with this roster. You've got to cut him. All right, I said I wasn't going to talk too much about these coaches, but I just needed to talk about Billy Napier. My next coach in the hot seat is going to be Sam Pittman at Arkansas. We got Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati, Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, Tony Elliott at Virginia. I had made this coaching hot seat before the Florida State game. He might not be on it anymore. But Tony Elliott of Virginia, and then Dabo Swinney at Clemson, who I got him at last because I don't think even if Clemson goes like 2-10 this season, they're gonna cut him or fire him. But I think he's starting to get to that Mike Gundy point where he's too old. He's a good coach, but he's too old, and he's not. He can't handle the game. He's kind of at that Mike Gundy stage, or Kirk Ferentz a couple years ago, where it's like you got to move on. I think you got a lot of emotional. I mean, he's brought 2 championships to this Clemson team. Before Dabo Swinney, I mean, this Clemson team was lost. I mean, they had like 1 or 2 bowl games their entire history, and I get that he's gotten them on track, and he's made them a blue blood in there, without a doubt, the best team in the ACC, which isn't saying it much because it is the ACC. But I mean, look at their transfer record. I don't think they started taking transfers until last year. I mean, you got a coach at one of the top top programs in the country saying we don't take transfers. Dabo Swinney is on my my hot seat watch list. That is my hot seat watch list. We'll check into that next week more in detail. But just setting the record for who I think is on those hot seats. My top 10 games looking into next season, and then I'm gonna give you my watch list guide, which is gonna be brought to you by this awesome website called cfb.guide. I'll try to link it down below. Lifesaver. And then I'm gonna give picks for every game, which might take me a while, but I'll do that. But here are my top 10 games going in to week 6. All right, number 1, I've got Miami, Florida. I think this game is going to be fantastic. I get Florida just went ahead and lost this game to. I get that Florida went ahead and lost the game to Virginia, but I think they're playing this game at home. It's Miami. If you have any game on your schedule that you can win and get back on track with, instantly get back up to speed, it's Miami. However, I am going to give the edge to Miami. I'm going to give Miami this game. I think Miami takes care of business, but Florida State's going to, they got something to play for. Both these teams have something to play for. I'm going to give my undivided attention to this game. It's my key game of the week. I think it's going to be cinema. It's got the most implications. This is an ACC, best on best. This is a heavyweight. This is like a Georgia, Alabama if ACC had one, But I'm going to give Miami the benefit of the doubt. My number 2 game of the week, college game day, it's going to be Vanderbilt, Alabama. And I think Alabama takes care of this. They're going to be in Tuscaloosa. And remember this game last year? It was the game of the year. Vanderbilt, who had almost never beaten a top 10 opponent. They went in and they beat Alabama. It's the upset of the year, game of the year. Alabama's pissed. And they've already lost to Florida State, but they just beat Georgia. Upset Georgia. You will coming into this game with a lot of swagger. You got a chip on your shoulder from losing to this Vandy team last year. It's gonna be my number 2 game of the week. Number 3, low key, I'm gonna give it to Texas, Florida. I want to see who's more fraudulent. Both these teams are fraudulent. Arch Manning doesn't look good at all. For 4 games. This Texas defense is fine, but and obviously, Florida has been otherworldly bad. But if Florida wins this game, how are we talking about Texas and how are we talking about Florida? If Florida wins this game in Gainesville in the Swamp, I think that's something. I think that's something that Billy Napier can kind of stand on and keep his head above water if they beat Texas. I get Texas is not a good school, but they got an outside chance of winning this. I'm still gonna give the benefit of the doubt to Texas. My number 4 game of the week, I got Iowa State, Cincinnati. I don't really got a preview there, but I think it's gonna be fantastic. I mean, I watch every single Big 12 game. I think the Big 12 is the most exciting conference in the country. It seems like every single game they play is just the craziest thing you'll ever see. If you were old enough to remember Pac-12 After Dark, I get the Pac-12 is dead, and we're all crying, and we're all sad, and we should be, because it's a crime that Pac-12 After Dark is no more. But if you're missing Pac-12 After Dark, tune into some Big 12 games. They are ludicrous. They're all ludicrous. But I'm going to give this Cincinnati-Iowa State game to... I'm going to give it to Iowa State. I had them in the top 15. I don't even have Cincinnati there. But, again, they're playing in Cincinnati. I think they've got a chance. Number 5, I'm going to go Virginia-Louisville. I want to see if Virginia can keep rolling. They got this momentum from knocking off Florida State, and Louisville. It's a top 20. I got them top 25 in the country, but Virginia, I got them at 38 on my my whole list. But I think Virginia could win this handedly. But I'm gonna have to I'm gonna make Louisville for accuracy. My number 6 game of the week, it's gonna be Texas Tech Houston. I think Texas Tech is I do have them as the best team in the Big 12, but Houston is no slouch either. Again, another Big 12 game, another absolute sit-on moment. I'm taking Texas Tech here. We've got Washington, Maryland, and I'm going to give the edge to Washington here. We got Duke, Cal, which was an exciting game last year, if you guys remember that. I might be talking out my ass, but I'm gonna go with Duke here. Coming off this exciting win against Syracuse, we got Boise State, Notre Dame. This is not a play. I almost said this is a playoff rematch, but it's not a playoff rematch. This is two teams that were in the playoffs last year. Notre Dame doesn't look good at all. Boise State, I get they lost to South Florida, but ever since then they've been clicking. If Boise State wins this game against Notre Dame, I think we got two things to talk about. Number 1, Notre Dame is dead in the water. And number 2, Boise State is far away the best group of 5 team in the country. But I am going to give this, the edge of the, I'm going to give it to Notre Dame. That's my pick, but I would love to see Boise State win this game. And my number 10 game of the season, I got Michigan State, Nebraska. I think it's a rivalry. I don't know it. I don't think it's a rivalry. It's not a rivalry game. But I got Michigan State, Nebraska. I'm not a huge Dylan Raiola fan, but I do like Aiden Chills, and I do think these are two of the dark horse teams in the Big Ten. Nebraska, I got them at 29, and I got Michigan State at 48. So I'm gonna give the edge to Nebraska here. So recapping top 10 games: Miami, Florida State. I'm taking Miami. Vanderbilt, Alabama, I'm taking Alabama. Texas, Florida, I'm taking Texas. Iowa State, Cincinnati, I'm taking Iowa State. Virginia, Louisville, I'm taking Louisville. Texas Tech, Houston, I'm taking Texas Tech. Washington, Maryland, I'm taking Washington. Duke, Cal, I'm taking... I don't think I made a pick there. I did make a pick. I'm taking Duke. Boise State, Notre Dame, I'm taking Notre Dame. And then Michigan State, Nebraska, I'm taking Nebraska. That's my top 10 games of the week. But we've got to make our picks for all the games. So we'll get to that right after this. I don't have an ad reel. I don't know why I said that. Oh, and before I make all these picks, all the picks for all of the games, I want to stress to you why you might want to listen if you're a gambling man such as I. Last week I finally started keeping track of how my predictions and how accurate I was, and I tracked all these different games last week, and I picked the winner 79.6% of the time. Now 79.6%. Well, how good is that? Well, if you just went with the line that Vegas gave you and you just picked all the money lines, you would only get 76.8% of them right. That's a whole 3% better off the top. 3% better. If I can give you better picks in Vegas, you might find a little bit of room to make some money there. So gonna spoil it because I'm adding this in post. I already know I'm gonna take ULM over Northwestern. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Northwestern might be favored in that game. And if they are, I'm gonna put some cashola on it. But college football, let's check. Northwestern. So it is Northwestern. They're favorited by 11.5. Or no, that's the spread. Let me look at money line. Northwestern. They're minus 445. Louisiana Monroe or UNM, they're plus 365. So, if you were to put say $5 on that, you could potentially win $18.25. So just a little heads up. So here are our picks for Week 5. We're going to start, obviously, chronologically with this October 2nd Thursday night game between Sam Houston State and New Mexico State. I got I got New Mexico State, and I don't think it's going to be close. You got Charlotte at South Florida, give me South Florida. We got Western Kentucky, Delaware, give me Western Kentucky. New Mexico, San Jose State, give me New Mexico. Colorado State, San Diego State, give me San Diego State. And we've got this primetime matchup, West Virginia, BYU. I'm going to take BYU there. Now we're going to get into the real meat of this, segment. Saturday. What did the games look like on Saturday? So we're going to start with the 12-1 slate. We got Army, UAB. I'm going to take UAB. I'm going to take Baylor versus Kansas State. Air Force, Navy, the first leg of the Commander's Trophy, give me Navy. Ohio, Ball State, give me Ohio. Illinois, Purdue, give me Illinois. Wisconsin, Michigan, give me Michigan. Hate to say it. Kentucky, Georgia, give me Georgia. Don't give me Kentucky, give me Georgia. Clemson, North Carolina, give me Clemson. Boston College, Pitt, give me Pitt. Iowa State, Cincinnati, give me Iowa State. Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, give me Virginia Tech. Utah, the University of Texas San Antonio at Temple, give me Utah. This part might go a little bit slower because I gotta make these picks on the fly. I had the early slate written down, but I'm too impatient to write these ones down. So I got my little spreadsheet up here, and I got the schedule pulled up right here. So for this, starting at 2:00, we get Campbell, NC State. Obviously, that's a group of or an FCS team. So give me NC State. We got Western. Oh, why can I not find anything? There we go. Bear with me. For sakes. There we go. Holy smokes. Forgive me. We got Western Michigan and UMass. I'm going to take Western Michigan. UMass it's the worst team in the country. We got Oklahoma State, Arizona. Give me Arizona. We got Miami of Ohio and Northern Illinois. Give me Northern Illinois. Or you know what? No. Give me Miami of Ohio. Both these teams are horrible. We got FIU and UConn. Give me UConn. We got Eastern Michigan and Buffalo. Give me Buffalo. We got Central Michigan and Akron. Give me Central Michigan. None of these teams are particularly good. Akron's horrible. But give me Central Michigan. We got James Madison and Georgia State. I'm gonna take James Madison. For Virginia, Louisville. Give me Louisville. Syracuse, SMU. Give me Syracuse. Vanderbilt, Alabama. Give me Alabama. Texas, Florida. Give me Texas. We got ULM and Northwestern. Give me ULM. I think that's going to be a group of 5 upset. We've got. I'll have this all put together next week, so I don't have to figure this out on the fly. But for right now, I am figuring it out on the fly. We got Penn State, UCLA. Give me Penn State. We got Oregon State and Appalachian State. I'm going to take Appalachian State. We got Boise State, Notre Dame. I'm taking Notre Dame. Washington, Maryland. I am taking Washington, but I think that's going to be close. We got Michigan State, Nebraska. I'm taking Nebraska. Texas State, Arkansas State. I already tell you I'm taking Texas State. Kent State, Oklahoma. I'm taking Oklahoma. Coastal Carolina, Old Dominion. I'll take Old Dominion. Texas Tech, Houston. I'll take Texas Tech. UNLV, Wyoming. I will take UNLV. We got South Alabama, Troy. Let's see for this one. And Troy. I'm taking Troy. Florida Atlantic and Rice. I'm taking Rice. Got Minnesota, Ohio State. Give me Ohio State. Mississippi State, Texas A&M. Give me Texas A&M. Miami, Florida State. Give me Miami. Colorado and TCU. I got TCU. Kansas, UCF. Give me Kansas. Duke and California. Give me Duke. We got Nevada, Fresno State. Give me Fresno State. Long-winded. That certainly went faster than what I was trying to go for. But those are all of my game picks for this week. Now I'm gonna end things off with my watching guide. You know, what games to watch out for at what time slots. Obviously, we've only, I'm gonna assume you've got 4 screens. You're doing a simulcast. If you don't know how to do that, ask your, if you don't know how to do that, Vivaldi browser lets you split your screens into 4. If you can't find the games, there's a helping hand somewhere. You can always find the games. So I'm assuming you have 4 screens. Let's head over to CFB Guide. Yeah, obviously there's only 1 game on Thursday and 4 games on, no, there is 5 games on. There's only 3 games on at a time on Thursday. So, on Saturday, I'm going to take, for my first 4 games of the 1 o'clock window, I'm going to watch, I'm going to watch Iowa State, Cincinnati, Wisconsin, Michigan, Air Force, Navy, just because I think it's funny to watch triple option football. And then probably, if I had to pick a 4th game, I'm gonna take this Kansas State Baylor game. So for the 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock window, I'm gonna watch Vanderbilt, Alabama. I'm gonna watch Boise State, Notre Dame. I'm gonna watch Michigan State, Nebraska. And for my 4th game, you can toss this up any ways you want. You can watch Texas, Florida, Virginia, Louisville, or Texas State, Arkansas State. I'm probably going to take Virginia, Louisville. And for the late window, we got Miami, Florida State, must-watch TV. We've got Colorado, TCU, must-watch TV. Texas Tech, Houston, must-watch TV. And then a toss-up, if you want to watch Kansas, UCF, and see, Big 12 chaos, watch Kansas, UCF. But if you want to, watch a game with a little bit more, I think, oomph, if there's one team that can probably, upset any team in the country, it's probably going to be Mississippi State. Mississippi State going on the road at Kyle Field to play Texas A&M. That would probably be my 4th game of this time slot. But, and actually that's about it. That, is my 4 games for all 3 windows that I personally am going to be watching. Hope that helped you kind of, make a sense of this mess of a schedule. There are, how many games are there on Saturday? I got it right here, actually. There is 45 games on. Now, you can't possibly watch all 45. But if you are, nearing the 3rd quarter of this, say this Virginia-Louisville game, and Louisville's up by 50 points, and you're like, I don't want to watch this anymore. There is a friendly little website called Game on Paper, and I'll link that below along with CFB Guide, and you just have that open on a browser tab and check in on it every once in a while. It's a live scoreboard, but it color codes each game based on how close they are. So if you're getting to the 3rd quarter of the 1 o'clock slate and, 2 of your games are boring, head over to the Game on Paper and see which ones are exciting, swap them out. Why not? Make the most of your 4 screens. And I think I'm going to have to leave that here. We've covered our awards for last week, our storylines for last week, our top 25 teams, top 10 group of 5 teams, our, hot seats, and all of our picks, our top 10 games, and finally our watch guide. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Keen on Football, the Week 6 college football preview. I will see you next week where we're going to review Week 7, or, preview Week 7, review Week 6, and I'll publish a video, every week I try. But I will see, if, for example, Billy Napier gets fired on Tuesday or Wednesday of, next week, I'll probably make a quick 10-15 minute video talking about that. But the chunk of this channel is going to be this weekly review show. And I'll try to implement more segments. I've already got ideas for what I want to do. I want to talk about any recruiting news, if there is any. I want to talk about there's one more, draft prospects, who's going up, who's going down. But I'll save that for next week. I wanted to keep this first episode a little bit brief. I'm not sure how long I'm running at. It is going to be a pretty long video, but I only have to make one of these a week, so I'm fine with that. So, with that, this was Keen on Football. I was your host, Keen, and I hope I'll have you again next week. Thank you for tuning in. See you then.